Officers are human beings as well with real emotions, but guys and gals, you gotta control them in the moment because the optics on this one suck. Hi everyone, welcome to today's bonus badge cam lesson here at Active Self Protection. I'm your host, John Correa.
And I'm your co-host, Mike Williver. Today's video comes to us from Phoenix, Arizona.
I use Throom targets on the range for all the benefits of steel with none of the drawbacks. They're made in the USA too. Pick up a set to make your shooting more fun and effective. These officers are just like getting a soda or something at this quick trip, and they are leaving because they've received a call for service. And as they come out, this guy wants to talk to them, and they're like, okay, man, but hey, we gotta go. We've got a call for service, so we have to get out of here. So they're gonna get in their car while he continues to talk to them. They have no prior relationship with this guy. They weren't called to him for service. They had not stopped them. He wanted to talk to them. So as he backs away from the cruiser, no joke, he's gonna pull a gun and have a negligent discharge there. And then he is going to point the gun at the officers and fire it and go through their spotlight and into the A-pillar of the car. He's then gonna run into the quick trip and start interacting with the employees. When the officers quite naturally get out of their car, one of them is going to get his patrol rifle out, and they are going to then get in here as he is talking to them and like waving the gun around. They then got to get their guns up. Watch now as we go back to the other footage. You're going to see him put his hands in the air and surrender to them and get on his knees, and then they are going to get him down. Now we have badge cams from both officers here, so let's see what happens. They're going to get him into custody. Let's see how it goes down with the audio.
Get on the ground. Get on the fucking ground. Don't fucking move. Where's the gun at? Let me see your fucking hand. Where's the fucking gun? Stupid motherfucker. What the fuck's your problem?
This is the second officer's badge cam here that we can see happening.
We'll blow your fucking head off, dude. Make any other.
They want to get your trigger, I promise.
Where's the gun? It's right here. Is that where you left it? Or you guys put it?
Oh, he came in. I didn't know what he was talking about.
I promise I don't have no problem with you guys.
Fuck you, dude. Don't fucking shoot at us.
Sorry, I was trying to shoot over you.
No. What the fuck is that, dude? Yeah, go ahead.
There was also a cell phone video taken by one of the employees that went wildfire on social media. I have it in its entirety here for you to see what happened.
Get on the ground. Get on the fucking ground. Don't fucking move. Where's the gun at? Let me see your fucking hand. Where's the fucking gun?
I don't have it.
Motherfucker. What the fuck's your problem? Hey, can you shut it down? You know where he was done?
I don't know where he threw it at.
It's right here. Hey, don't fucking move, man.
What
the fuck is your problem?
Yes, one guy on like 59th Avenue, 202, just west. Yeah. Check his phone. Wait. Hey, I won't blow your fucking head off, dude.
You want to get your trigger, I promise.
Where's the gun?
Right there on the counter right there.
Is that where you left it?
Yeah, no, he came in. I didn't know what he was talking about. Hey, we need to.
I promise I don't have no problem with you guys.
Fuck you, dude. Don't fucking shoot at us.
Sorry, I was trying to shoot over you.
No, what the fuck is that, dude?
Just roll fire for this guy.
I'm really so bad. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I can't believe you're tricking me. Can you tell me? Please stop.
Shut the fuck up! Check this on.
Please. He's side, go figure.
Check this side. Just check this side.
As a result of this, the guy who fired at the cops is facing aggravated assault against a police officer charges for what he's done. He was also a prohibited possessor who had previously pointed a gun at cops in 2007, though these officers did not know that. The Phoenix Police Department has recommended to the Maricopa County District Attorney that both of these officers face aggravated assault charges for what they did. Let's talk about it.
I think sometimes we expect cops to not be human and not have human emotions. Some dude just shot at me and all that stuff, and I'm not gonna be happy.
And missed by a foot.
Right?
You know, so.
But at the same time, this one sucks. Let's talk about it.
The whole beginning of this one, Mike, is completely nonsensical to me. That why this guy would decide to rip off a couple of shots at cops that he is the one who initiated contact with. They're not messing with him. They don't want to detain him or any of those things. He just wants to talk to them, and when they decide they're going to leave, he's going to rip off shots at him. I got nothing here.
Again, this goes back to you never know what's going to happen when your shift starts. You're expecting a certain thing to happen, and this is what ends up happening. This guy could be like, we call them squirrels or police groupies. There's a subculture of people that hang out and like talk about what frequency the cops are on and what caliber of bullet are in their guns and that sort of thing, and they try to befriend cops. It's a whole thing. But with that said, who knows if that was what this guy was up to. Very strange behavior. I don't know if he wanted to die. I don't know if he was just super mentally imbalanced or what, but this is definitely one I've never seen before.
And literally, he's done this before, pointed a gun at cops, so he's a prohibited possessor. And certainly the officers have every reason to believe this guy is a deadly threat to them because he literally ripped a shot off that went within a few inches of the driver officer's head. And this is aggravated assault. And had these cops jumped out of the cruiser right here and shot this guy dead, it would have been 100% justified. And I would have had zero problems with it. And in fact, they probably needed to do that in this particular case. They couldn't have driven the cruiser over him because of the pillars. But you know, getting out there and doing that, this guy is 100% in the wrong. And for the rest of this, I totally understand why the officers would be freaking out and scared for their life and angry given all of this, because they're humans and they're affected by human emotion. And as they come in here and see this guy, I do want to say, listen, the fact that they did not immediately shoot him is, I think, commendable and good. But I want to also notice the guy is right now, as we see him here, on his knees with his hands in the air and his hands empty. So he has responded to that.
Oh, I'm sorry, John. Let me say two things. So I want everyone to be crystal clear what we're saying here. The officers' anger, their rage at someone trying to murder them for no reason is completely 100% understandable. We're not saying that excuses their subsequent behavior, but had they shot him in the parking lot as he was walking away, they would have been 100% justified to do that. Coming in here, the guy's hands are up, and I know the feeling of, you just tried to kill me, and you're just going to give up right now? Like, now that you're at disadvantage, you're just going to give up, and I have to be the cop and go put you in handcuffs. That makes me mad. You know, these are all feelings that officers go through, that deputies go through. You know, the person who led you on a crazy pursuit and endangered hundreds of lives, or whatever the case might be, and then at the last moment, they're cowards and give up. You know, that's all understandable. But understand, we're not calling this justified. We're saying we understand why they were upset. But the job of a police officer, the job of a public servant, is to control your emotions. Remember, they're not calling you an MFer. They're calling the badge, the department. The department's mother is who has sexual proclivities they don't agree with, not you. You can't take it personally. No matter how personal it is, you've got to control your emotions in this moment.
Yeah, and I mean, hard to say all through those things, but again, he's giving up. And so you've got to have the emotional fitness in order to control yourself, because you don't want to face charges for what you're doing. You want to be the good, sane, sober, moral, prudent person. Now, from a purely tactics perspective, this officer does a pretty good job of not pointing his gun at his partner. You can see he's kind of got his muzzle averted right up until the fact that he points him at the legs of his partner. And I got to tell you, if I'm watching this later with my partner, we're going to have words about pointing a gun at my back. You've got to learn a proper muzzle aversion technique, so then that way this stuff doesn't happen, because could easily have ripped off a round into his partner's legs.
Yeah, I know you're under stress. I know you're worried the bad guy's going to pop up with a gun, but understand you have an officer ahead of you with a patrol rifle with superior firepower. There's really, it looks like he has the gun up in front of him at this point. There's really no reason to have it up in that position. You're actually putting yourself at a disadvantage. As we talked about earlier, having the gun up in your field of vision means you can't see what the other person or people are doing, you know, from the center of their chest down. You don't necessarily what their hands are doing. So let the officer with a rifle do his job and kind of be the spearhead here, clear the way with superior firepower, and have your gun down. It shouldn't really be up at all at this moment.
Now, as they close in on this guy, really what I want to kind of talk about from here is the cell phone footage, because it's pretty damning in my opinion. So first of all, the guy goes down, he's got his hands up and then puts his hands on the ground, starts to go down, but doesn't go down fast enough. And the officer responds to that by kicking him in the back of the head, by stomping from top to bottom on his head and driving his face into the concrete. I got to be honest with you. I think this is non-justified. I think this is really kicking somebody with a shod foot while they are downed and not a deadly threat themselves is aggravated assault. That is kind of definitionally aggravated assault. And I hate that the officer, you know, wasn't able to control his emotions, but this is not okay.
Yeah, you know, I understand, and I think, John, you know as well, that using a technique to stun someone temporarily to gain compliance is a very common practice in law enforcement and completely acceptable. So a closed hand punch, if you know, might have been appropriate here. But yeah, once the person's on a hard surface and you're using, as you said, a shod foot to push their face into the ground. Look, I understand this officer's moving in, and I'll say this again in a few minutes. I understand he wants to make sure this guy doesn't reach underneath him and produce a gun. I get that. I totally understand that. But either staying at a distance and ordering him into like a felony stop position where he's down, you know, angel arms spread out, legs crossed, to where they could have moved in, or moving in quickly and controlling him physically. Those were your two options. This wasn't really the way to go. He's already shown he's shot at you. Like, at this point, this suspect's freaking out as well, and it's going to have a hard time listening to your command. So I think just getting in there and controlling his hands would have been the move.
Yeah, and we expect our officers to maintain emotional control. We train them to do so, and we expect them to do so, and that's a reasonable expectation. Now then, the other guy stomps him as well. I don't like that at all, and now the guy's not super compliant, and the officer muzzle punches him with the suppressor. I think that is also aggravated assault, quite frankly, because, again, the only time a muzzle strike is acceptable is otherwise, it's deadly force. That is highly likely to cause great bodily harm. It did cut this guy. It did send him to the hospital. And so the only time that's justified is against a deadly threat. You cannot use deadly force in order to gain compliance. That is not acceptable. If the guy was, you know, still had a gun in his hand, if he is reaching for your gun, I'm down with all of that. But I don't see that here. And so I think the officer is thinking this is the same as punching him in the face, and it is not.
Again, we talked about that a moment ago. Yeah, a closed fist punch to the face would have been justified here. The part of the problem we're having here is he's still got his long gun. A long gun is not appropriate, even if there were a deadly threat, when you're at bad breath distance, like you're on top of the guy. It's time to use your sling as it was intended and put it on safe, put it behind you, and get in there and use your hands, or a taser, or even pepper spray, or a closed fist, or something. But a strike to the face with a muzzle of an AR platform gun is not the answer in this moment. Not only is it unlawful, it's inefficient. It's not the move.
Yeah, and if you got the long gun, you stay cover and let your partner who's got a handgun get in there and put hands on the guy and get him into custody. Again, not okay in any capacity, and I understand that. Now, see the second officer right here. He muzzle punched the guy in the back of the head with his pistol. That is also still aggravated assault. He's got his hand out so we can see both hands and recognize the guy doesn't have any weapons on him at all. You cannot use a muzzle punch as a compliance technique in this kind of a situation. It's just not acceptable. And I really think, again, the officer's going to continue to cause problems here because, again, he's got his duty rifle out and on this guy, or whatever. Now, the guy's going to roll himself into kind of a recovery position, and then the officer kicks him while he's cuffed. Now I think you might say, well, the guy was kind of trying to roll over and kick on the officer, whatever. Quite frankly, once he was in cuffs and searched, they probably needed to roll him into a recovery position themselves. And kicking a guy like that after you've muzzle punched him, again, you're probably going to catch assault charges for that.
Again, I understand the anger. I understand being super duper pissed off because someone just shot at you. However, you got to know there's going to be cell phone cameras, there's going to be surveillance cameras, there's going to be your badge cam, and something like this one, there's no even remote justification for this kick other than being angry at the guy who just shot at you.
Who's a dirtbag? Let's be honest. He's a dirtbag.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah, I once got in a lot of trouble because I said I wasn't going to lose any sleep over the injuries of a guy who was assaulted by a police officer. What I meant by that was that guy's a dirtbag and put himself in that position. So I'm sorry that he got hurt, but don't do dumb stuff. In this case, this guy they need to get him in a recovery position. They need to get him up and probably get him out of there and start collecting their thoughts and their breaths, because this was just over the top, John. The problem here is twofold. One, the public loses trust in its law enforcement when they see this sort of thing. Now, even seeing this video in context, and I'm sure a lot of people just saw these guys beating the crap out of this guy and didn't have the context of him shooting at them previously. Even in context, this looks bad. And we're already in a bad spot in law enforcement in this country, where we lost a lot of trust and people are mad at the cops and want to defund us. Well, this is not helping. This is supremely unhelpful. As a peace officer, as a law enforcement officer, you're a public servant and you're expected to control your emotions. You're expected to control your actions. And so this is something that's just hurtful to the brand of law enforcement. And it just reinforces the idea that we're a bunch of Neanderthal thugs out here beating people up for no reason. Let me reiterate. I understand why they're mad. I 100% get that. I 100% get why their emotions are out of control, but it's their job to rein them in. So we need to do a better job of controlling ourselves, controlling our emotions and our actions to better cover everyone's ass.